The Spotlight brought to you by Beacon Plumbing.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for The Spotlight. I'm David Rose, and we begin tonight with the latest data tracking the fast-moving fentanyl epidemic in King County. There were more than 1,000 drug-related deaths last year. Half of those were from synthetic drugs like meth and fentanyl. According to the data, at least 2 people died every day in King County from a fentanyl overdose, with the price of the synthetic drug playing a huge role in the crisis.
When they first came into our community in 2015, 2016, they were very expensive and hard to get, $40, $50 a pill. Now they're pretty ubiquitous and run about $1 to $2 a pill, according to reports that I saw last week.
Seattle is seeing the highest increase in deaths in the region, followed by South King County. An overdose advisor says the impacts of fentanyl continue to disproportionately rise in people of color.
The rate of overdose of American Indian, Alaska Native individuals are approximately 9 times that currently of white population in our community. Also, Black or African-American individuals are overdosing at approximately 3 times that of a white population.
These grim numbers underscore the urgency heard from Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell, who's issued an executive order to combat the drug addiction that's been driving crime and dangerous behaviors downtown. The Spotlight's AJ Janavel listened in on the mayor's announcement, and then he hit the streets to measure support for the plan from the people who live this crisis every day.
Downtown Seattle, it's the heart of our city.
Have you moved out here? The fentanyl crisis on our streets is causing death and disorder. If our downtown doesn't feel safe, and it isn't safe, we will fail as a city.
This is downtown Seattle, littered with crime, empty storefronts, and drug abuse.
It makes me really sad. It makes me so sad.
According to data, nearly 600 people died due to overdoses in 2022 in Seattle.
They're starting to wake up and say, hey, it's actually a problem. We need to do something about this.
Delene Ruth tells me she's clean now, but struggled with addiction for decades. She says this can't be the status quo.
We have an obligation to do more from those suffering from substance abuse disorder.
Monday, Seattle Mayor Bruce Harrell and several other officials announced plans to crack down on crime and help people suffering with addiction, as well as bring back people to downtown.
How do we get more people downtown?
The city's plan focuses on several areas, including arresting drug dealers, offering treatment services to addicts, as well as incentives, and making streets feel safer by adding lighting, cleaning litter, and graffiti, as well as filling vacant storefronts. I spoke to Downtown Seattle Association President and CEO John Scholes about his thoughts on this plan.
Getting it revitalized, starting with public safety, dealing with fentanyl. These are good first steps to get our downtown going again and draw more people back.
But these promises of public funding and new treatment programs come too late for people like Zach Hillis. His family confirms Zach's body was pulled from a recycling center in Tacoma earlier this month. Zach's father says he has lost 3 family members to fentanyl overdoses just in the last 5 months, including his son, who is struggling with addiction and mental health issues. They barely had a week together between his release from jail and his tragic end.
A horrific discovery leads to even more heartbreak for the SeaTac father.
There's no way he deserved this.
In the past 5 months, Stacy Hillis says he's had to bury his only brother, his daughter's father-in-law, and in a few days, he'll lay to rest his 33-year-old son, Zach Hillis.
Just a loving kid that's gone way too soon, man.
It's not the unfathomable pain keeping Stacy and his wife from attending their son's viewing on Friday.
It's a grief that you don't have any words for.
It's the unbearable thought of seeing their son's condition after authorities pulled Zach's body from this recycling plant in Tacoma.
Shredded like trash and thrown on conveyor belts and crushed in the garbage can multiple times, you know. No parent ever should hear that, you know, let alone bury their son.
As detectives try to piece together the timeline of Zach's last moments.
He wasn't just a homeless body found at a recycling plant. He was a son, a brother, an uncle.
Hillis says Zach was addicted to fentanyl and had schizophrenia.
This state is horrible for how they treat the mentally ill.
He believes his son would still be here had he been sent to a hospital and not released to a halfway house after a 4-month stay in jail.
I'm trying to stay strong for him and get him some answers.
Answers to so many questions, among the most haunting.
Was he alive in the garbage can or was he dead?
Hillis says it's unlikely his son climbed in on his own.
I just hope that if he did wind up in there, somebody had put him there after he passed away, and that's horrible.
So far, he says officials have told him there are no signs of foul play.
He had a heart of gold, man. He didn't have any enemies. Nobody. Everybody loved Zach.
In return, Stacy says Zach loved them all.
He loved all his brothers and sisters, mom and dad, everybody.
But as Seattle and King County devote more resources to the drug crisis, other communities are pulling back. Linwood council members have passed a moratorium on the acceptance of substance abuse clinic applications. This comes less than 3 months after a controversial methadone clinic opened up in Alderwood. The emergency ordinance passed 5-1. Some members said their vote is not for or against the clinics, but rather a way to buy more time to discuss what requirements should be met before a new substance abuse clinic opens. Council members believe the 6-month pause will help them avoid being caught off guard again by community backlash.
The most important thing is for the city council to be able to roll up their sleeves, talk about it, get additional facts from both our DBS and our city attorney, and then come up with a solution that best suits the city of Linwood.
Now that this ordinance has passed, the city will hold a public hearing within the next 60 days. A troubling trend plaguing the South Sound. We're seeing a rise in the number of kids connected to crimes. In Tacoma, drive-by shootings involving juveniles have already surpassed last year's numbers, up 28%. And the number of teens arrested for firearms, stolen vehicles, and robberies is also trending higher than last year's totals. Earlier this month, Tacoma police arrested 6 teenagers linked to a multi-county robbery and assault investigation, a crime spree going on since July. And in late March, they arrested 2 teenagers in connection with murdering a 16-year-old Foss High School student. We asked Diane Clarkson, the Assistant Chief Criminal Deputy with the Pierce County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, about this youth crime crisis.
What I'm seeing as a prosecutor is that we release them back to the community on probation, and they're committing bigger and badder offenses. It makes you wonder where the system is failing. Is it the home? Is it the schools?
Clarkson tells the Spotlight law changes in Washington state, easy access to how-to videos for committing crimes on social media, and a lack of outlets for young people are all adding to this troubling trend. One of the most monumental weapons bills to come out of Olympia is certainly good for business at local gun shops. We'll pay one a visit when we come back. The man convicted of killing Everett police officer Dan Rocha will spend the rest of his life behind bars without the possibility of parole. A judge handed down the mandatory sentence for Richard Rotter in a courtroom packed with police officers and friends, as well as family of Dan Rocha. Last March, Officer Rocha approached Rotter in a Starbucks parking lot. At the time, Rotter was transferring guns from one car to another. The two got into a struggle, and that's when Rotter shot Officer Rocha several times. But then he ran him over and sped off before crashing. Before his sentencing, Rotter addressed the court and asked for forgiveness.
I am a Christian, and I have fallen. It says in the Word, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And I just ask that you just please remember that.
Even though in Washington the life sentence is automatic for aggravated first-degree murder, the court still considered statements from Rocha's loved ones who shared their grief and the suffering that Rotter caused that awful day.
The decision to take Stanley's life was his and his alone. Each shot he fired caused a ripple and a tear through every person's life who met, cared for, and loved Dan.
The judge also added additional time for Rotter's other convictions. The jury found him guilty of possession of a controlled substance with intent to manufacture, attempting to elude a pursuing police vehicle, and unlawful possession of a firearm. Rotter now has a month to appeal his sentence. Well, gun violence and gun control became one of the central political debates to define this legislative session. Passage of House Bill 1240 is the culmination of a years-long battle to ban assault weapons in the state of Washington. Gun shop owners say sales are skyrocketing as people stock up. That was certainly the case when the Spotlight's Matthew Smith paid a visit to Wade's Eastside Guns in Bellevue.
Up until that point, we just step on the gas, right? We're going to sell, all hands on deck.
Wade Gorn asked that we don't show customers today, but it's no secret. They are busy inside. Assault weapons have been in the crosshairs of legislators for years. For the legislator behind HB 1240, this battle stretches back to a deadly 2016 shooting over in Mukilteo.
Was upset, had broken up with his girlfriend, went up to a sporting goods store, purchased a rifle, and shot up a house party, killing 3.
I just came into my house and started shooting all my friends.
After that shooting, the AG in Peterson began working on this very legislation.
We want to try to minimize the ability to purchase these weapons of war just to reduce the likelihood of these mass shootings.
Rep. Peterson telling Fox 13 the bill doesn't take away guns already purchased, hence the massive run on guns this week. But it took a lot of fight to get to now.
Only one of my sisters made it back home alive.
Robert Schentrup is from Seattle. He spoke about his sister, who was among the 17 killed in the 2018 Parkland, Florida shooting.
Our family has to live forever with the knowledge that our daughter was killed, shot in the back while she was running for her life.
Washington native Anne Marie Parsons' daughter was killed in Vegas. 60 people were killed in that instance. In all 3 of those instances, though, Mukilteo, Parkland, and Vegas, the guns were legally purchased.
No more silence and gun violence.
Earlier this month, students around the state walked out of high schools after a mass shooting in Tennessee, again with a legally purchased assault weapon. Now, those against the bill say those are in the minority, that law-abiding citizens ought to be able to protect themselves, that these guns afford them the opportunity.
They're making a big deal like this, like people should feel safer. When he signs this law, no one's safer. In fact, people are less safe.
In fact, Gorn telling Fox 13 he'll follow this law to the T, but he expects a massive fight once Governor Inslee lays pen to paper on HB 1240.
And I don't think it's going to be a lawsuit. I think it's going to be a cascade of lawsuits. I think there's going to be different people attacking this law on different points.
Passage of 2 more bills helped make this session especially momentous for gun control advocates. House Bill 1143 mandates a 10-day waiting period for all gun purchases, and Senate Bill 5078 requires gun makers take reasonable steps to ensure that their weapons don't go to dangerous individuals. Well, the biggest struggle faced by some local fire responders is all in their heads. The story when we return. Seattle police are hoping to crowdsource a solution to a years-long mystery, the identity of the person whose remains washed up in pieces near Seattle's Discovery Park starting in 2017. And though the body parts were very distinctive, detectives have been unable to move this cold case forward. The Spotlight's Brisa Mendez says they're hoping genetic genealogy can finally give a family out there some closure about what happened to their missing loved one. The problem is they're having a hard time finding the money to pay for it.
So the first recovery was a hand. And then a month later, a torso and a leg washed up. Very distinctive shoes, black and gold Air Jordans. And then 3 days later, on January 25th, a foot washed up with the other matching shoe.
The shoes, a size 10, but the identity of the person still remains a mystery after all these years. The multiple body parts washed ashore in 2017 and 2018 near 4 Mile Rock at Seattle's Discovery Park.
We scoured missing person reports. It's a mystery. You know, we don't know who this person is. We do not know what happened to this person. We don't know where they came from. We don't know how they ended up in the water.
Detective Norton says that one avenue that is available now that wasn't available 5 or 10 years ago is the use of forensics genealogy.
And that's where we take a DNA profile and search it through publicly available genealogy websites in hopes of getting a link to a relative of the person we're trying to identify.
But that costs money to run the test, expected to be at least $15,000. So the department's hoping that public interest in solving cold cases might translate to cold hard cash.
For the Seattle Police Department, we haven't used this strategy just in identifying unidentified human remains in the past. We've only used it for criminal investigations. There's hopefully a family out there who has unanswered questions, but just getting to the bottom of this mystery.
The crowdsourcing campaign is being run by the Seattle Police Foundation, a nonprofit, and you can find the links to donate on our website, fox13seattle.com. Well, the alarm is sounding at fire departments around Western Washington, but this emergency is personal for the men and women who rescue us in times of need. During the pandemic, first responders were under a high level of stress, and that, unfortunately, is just becoming worse, with rising levels of local violence, drug abuse, and homelessness. The Spotlight's Nikki Torres has details of a new behavioral health program that's being set up by local fire leaders to help.
The concern for firefighters' mental health has never been greater than right now.
We see burnout, we see high retirements.
Firefighters, EMTs, the people who come to the rescue in times of need are now seeking help for themselves.
Suicide, this is the highest it's ever been.
Deputy Chief Chuck DeSmith works with Renton Regional Fire Authority. It is one of 12 fire agencies in Western Washington working to find a solution to the mental health crises across first responders.
Something to help at least address the fact that we're having all these needs. And so we needed it yesterday.
Fire stations provide crews with everything they can to stay safe. Helmets, boots to protect themselves from flames, most recently bulletproof vests in case of gun violence at a response. Yet in 2023, there's no set service to help crews cope with the aftermath.
Normally, we know that when we enter this job, we're going to see those things, and we're able to kind of file them away in our brains. But if things are difficult at home, this could be the last straw.
Deputy Chief DeSmith has been a firefighter for more than 30 years.
When I started in the 80s, the way that the community would use 911 was very different than today. It was very much associated with emergencies.
He says calls now are for chronic health needs.
Sometimes our firefighters have to see these patients over and over every day. And when they do that, it affects them because they got into this job to help.
The big three: people who are experiencing homelessness, people with mental health problems, and opiate addiction.
When you end up giving Narcan to the same person twice in one day, it does impact us because we want to help. And these are individuals that we know they have chronic needs.
Deputy Chief DeSmith adds more of the 911 calls are for violence.
These are not accidental shootings. These are targeted shootings and stabbings that our folks are coming into work and they're seeing this trauma.
How that trauma affects firefighters when they go home to live their life with their partner, their family, that is where their concern is. The behavioral health program in the works is a start.
We can't control who calls 911 for what. I cannot make this job any more safe or calls that they're going to go on. What I can do is understand how we respond and how to support our firefighters, not only here at work, but at home.
Well, stick around for one more story. A man who has turned his life of crime and addiction into an art form. Finally tonight, it is a story of hope, healing, and redemption. Curtis Wickstrom went from the depths of living with an addiction to owning his own tattoo shop and supporting the community around him. We get the story from photojournalist Michael Driver in Tacoma.
We're doing something different that no one else has done in the whole state of Washington before, a Las Vegas style tattoo shop where people can actually come by and see somebody getting tattooed and they want to be a part of it, and it's awesome.
I'm so excited to do this right now.
It's different and it's working very well.
He always helps me strive to want to be better here.
I'm Curtis Wickstrom and I'm the owner of Toughest Tacoma Tattoo and Get Right Studios. I love art. And it's nice to be able to provide environments for people to do art.
I'm so excited for you to look at this.
Watch them grow.
I have never felt more free because I get to do what I love every single day.
And it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
Always good vibes, always wants the best for everybody. Years ago, he would have never thought that he would be driving a Maserati and owning 2 tattoo shops.
It used to be really bad right here. I mean, there'd be tents everywhere. This brings back the memories right here, dude. We used to drop drugs out of that window in a fishing pole, and they'd hang down, and then someone would drive through and grab them, and then they'd put the money on the hook, and we'd just reel it back up. My best friend's dad made meth back here. This was a little bit longer than 6 years ago right here. This is where it all started back in the day. This is where it went big downhill. When I got to the lowest point, it was more or less the fact that I didn't care about anything else but getting high. You don't care about a roof, you don't care about running water, you don't care about having heat, you don't care about anything else but getting that drug and getting high. It was a real tough thing for my family, watching me suffer as bad as I was suffering, but they couldn't help me. Drugs was breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That's what it becomes. It was the big turning point for me. Drug deal gone bad right here with one of my really good friends. We were right here when it happened. It turned out to be a shootout, murder, and he was screaming, "Go, go, go," as the situation was going down. And I'll forever remember the way he was screaming it and how he was screaming it, and I put it on my arm to remind me to keep going when things get tough. Always keep going, no matter what. This is called the 811 house, and it's a clean and sober house. My room was back in the top corner. This is where I rebuilt my whole life, right here out of this house. I just wanted so many things for so long that the drugs just wouldn't let me reach. Sometimes when you have no hope left, it's crazy the things that can happen. There's a better life than out here, bro. It was the first time in my life I took the proper steps, and I left this house with a ridiculous amount of money saved. So steal from me. What am I gonna do today to grow more? Every day, that's my mentality. And how am I gonna help somebody? Oh yeah. Are you guys all getting them?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
He's what everybody aspires to be when they get out of addiction, and he made it through.
I'm just living proof that anybody can recover and come from a bad background or, you know, choices that they've made in life.
Nice.
My new drug is freedom, and it's very addictive. And you will not go back once you get a taste of it, and you'll do anything not to go back. And it's beautiful. It is beautiful.
And that's all the time we have on this edition of The Spotlight. Until next week, be smart and stay safe.